I was at Slim Chickens and they have a patio, so I limp my bike and myself over to the patio and I sit down and I call Mark and I'm like, Mark, I just wiped out on my bike. I'm not really hurt very bad, but my bike is broken. I will not be riding today. Is there any chance you could come down to where I am and pick up me and my bike, maybe just take me back to my truck, and then we'll just grab some lunch and I'll call it a day and go back to Conway? And he goes, no. Why are you in that spot? I don't want to talk about that, Mark. Just come get me. And so he's like, no, you came here to ride. I'm going to put my bike and my wife's bike in my car, and I'll come and get you. And so he goes to make the 30 or 35-minute drive from where he is in Bentonville to where I am on the south side of Fayetteville. And while he's coming, I'm like, bike parts are super hard to find right now. Like, they're selling bikes like crazy, and so I'm like, man, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to get parts. And so I call a friend who works in a bike shop, and he says, there's a bunch of shops that sell your exact kind of bike, like right there in the area. Call Fat Tire and see if they can get this little derailleur hanger. So while Mark is coming, I call Fat Tire, and I get the part so that I know I can come home with the part that I need for my bike. He shows up and he starts making fun of me instead of encouraging me immediately. And he goes, oh man, you look so dejected and downtrodden. He was like, you were like Job sitting on the patio on the side of the road. And I was like, yeah, I'm not really ready to joke around about this right now. And he's like, no, man, it's going to be okay. He said, we're going to go to Walgreens and we're going to get you like some Band-Aids, and then we're going to take these bikes. And I was like, well, if we can go get this part, at least in our journey, that would be great. And I had no interest in riding anymore at that point, but Mark did have interest in riding. And this is one of the things that we find to be true in our lives. That if we are on a journey or a path or a random sidewalk in Fayetteville when you don't even know where you are, and the going gets difficult, and you get a little banged up, and you just want to sit down and quit and take your ball or your bike and go home. Sometimes we need someone to come alongside and say, you know what? It's really not so bad. It's not good, but it's not the end. It's not easy, but it's not final. Like, if you can just pull yourself together, if you can just find a little bit of strength, if you can just keep this in perspective, you can keep going. And for me, I had no interest in riding my bike anymore at that point. My 60-mile bike ride had turned into a 7-mile bike ride, and I was done riding bikes for the day, but I had somebody who was there who, lighthearted, gave me a little bit of a ribbing, but ultimately wasn't going to let me sit there on that patio and sulk in my sorrows because I had scratched my leg and broken my bike. He basically said, no, man, we're going to make this happen. We're going to get up, we're going to get cleaned up, and we're going to get moving. And some of you have been in a place in your life before where you were down and you needed someone to come alongside. And that's the beauty of community. That's the beauty of a church family. That's the beauty of doing life together, is we are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses who have gone on before, but we're also surrounded by brothers and sisters who will encourage us when we are discouraged, who will help strengthen us when we are weak, who will come alongside and will help strengthen and sustain us so that we can keep on going in the midst of difficult times. That's why we worry so much in this period about those who are isolated and alone, because when you're isolated and alone, it's easy to hang your head and sulk and give up. But when you've got people around you that love you and care about you, when you have people around you who will hold you accountable and help you keep things in perspective, when you have people around you who can identify that right now you need some love, you need some encouragement, you need some support. One of the keys to persevering is being surrounded by people who love you and who love God and are going to help you continue to make progress on the journey. I've heard it said, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, you want to go together. And we need people to go together with on the journey. It's great for us to gather like this in a big group, but it's also important that we have a small group of people that we can connect with, that we can talk with, that we can be honest with about our strengths and about our struggles, about our joys and about our sorrows. Do you have people who are standing in the crowds and walking beside you, cheering you on, encouraging you, and supporting you? If you want to persevere, you're going to need some of those kind of people in your life. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. I'm trying to keep it in the P family here. So the first thing that you're going to need to persevere is you're going to need some people. And the second thing that you're going to need to persevere, this is a little bit of a pastoral stretch. You're going to need to keep your profile, okay? You don't want to be bulky and heavy and weighed down. You want to take off and remove as much as you can. If I'm going on a leisurely bike ride with my kids, it is dad cargo shorts and a t-shirt or a sweatshirt, depending on the season, and tennis shoes or flip-flops. But if I'm going to really ride my bike, and I apologize for this in advance, if I'm going to really ride my bike, I'm going to be dressed like this. Hopefully this is an image that you can wash out of your mind later today, but this is me in my bike jersey and my bike shorts. How many of you have seen a cyclist and you know what this looks like in real life? Let me give you an image. These are the exact clothes that I have on in this picture. I've got on this itty-bitty little spandex jersey, and my kids love it when I wear this around the house. I've got this on, and you know what? That's it. And I wouldn't want to have on anything else. When you're on the bike, they talk about the importance of your aerodynamics, that you want to be sleek, you want to be lean. It affects the clothes that you wear on the bike. It affects the position that you sit on the bike. Like, they actually make bikes that are just made to be aerodynamic. And that's all that they're for. They've taken every factor into account. And they're not the most comfortable bikes, but man, if you want to go really, really fast, you want to be aerodynamic. And when I read this, let's get that guy off of there. I apologize. When I read this, it says we want to throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, which means if you want to persevere, if you want to go far, if you don't just want to be in the short part of the journey, but you want to pack for the long haul and for the full journey, you're going to have to keep it pretty light and you're going to have to keep it pretty lean. Sometimes we want to carry things with us into the future that it would be best for us to set down and it would be best for us to leave behind. Sometimes we have things from the past that we're trying to drag into our future, and we find that, man, it's really hard for me to make progress right now because I'm trying to drag a lot of extra burdens. I'm trying to drag a lot of extra guilt. I'm trying to drag some extra shame into the future that God has for me. And I think what we would hear him say is, stop it. Take that stuff off. Don't keep living in the past when I've called you to be a new creation in the future. You don't have to carry that anymore. You want to dress for the journey that God has called you on. And what this is saying, what Paul is saying to these people, he's saying that you don't need a lot of extra layers. You don't want to carry a lot of extra stuff. You don't want anything that's going to get in the way, and you don't want anything that's going to weigh you down, nothing that hinders and nothing that entangles. But you want to continue to fix your eyes on Jesus, and you want to continue to make progress. Let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. You want people, you want to keep an arrow profile, and you want to watch your pace. There's that guy again, sorry. It says, let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. In fact, other translations, I think when I looked at the English Standard Version and the New Living Translation and the New King James Version, instead of perseverance, they all use a different word. Anybody want to guess what word that might be? Let us run with endurance. Patience also gets stuck in there sometimes. Like there's this interesting, Linda's going to preach next week on the interesting connection between perseverance, patience, and endurance. Let us run with endurance the race marked out for us. Now, I don't know what level of athlete we all are in here, but here's what you need to know. You run differently in a sprint than you run in a marathon. Any runners who at least know that is true, or maybe you can remember PE when you were 12, and if you had to run a mile, you ran at a different pace than you ran the 100-yard dash. What Paul, or the author of Hebrews, is telling us here, he's telling us that this is not a short race that we are on. This is a long journey that we are on, and so we need to run with endurance and perseverance the race that's marked out for us. In fact, like the Olympics got canceled this year, but when we watch the Olympics, you see all kinds of different athletes and all kinds of different disciplines, different sports from all over the world. And those athletes show up. And how many of you would say there's just one type of athlete body that all those people share? Like the sprinters have one type of muscle set that they use that has this instant, immediate boost of speed. So they have explosive speed, they have explosive strength, so they can run a short distance very, very fast. But if you put a sprinter next to a endurance like ultra marathoner or a marathon runner, the marathon runner looks scrawny in comparison to the sprinter. And if you take the sprinter and you put the sprinter next to a power lifter, all of a sudden you have three very different body types. Now, maybe a sprinter can adjust and run like a marathon runner, and maybe a marathon runner can run in a sprint when he has to, but they have trained for different things. And here's what I'm realizing in this moment. Part of the reason that this moment feels challenging for us is the world has pushed us to focus on speed and power. But God is actually calling us, and this moment is demanding us not to be a sprinter and not to be a power lifter. He's calling us to focus on stamina, on endurance, and on perseverance. And in order for us to do that, we have to make a mindset shift that says, I'm not just going to push as hard as I can like a power lifter, and I'm not just going to run as fast as I can like a sprinter. I'm going to intentionally pace myself so that I can go the distance even if the conditions are not ideal. And right now the conditions are not ideal. And if I try to sprint through them, I end up exhausted and empty. And if I just try to power through them, I feel like I'm constantly pushing against a weight that I can't move. But when I understand that this is a moment that requires perseverance and endurance and stamina for the long haul, I can begin to pace myself in such a way that I have enough in the tank to end the actual journey. Remember my friend Mark? Mark said, I can only go 30 miles. If you'll ride up, I'll ride back down with you. In fact, the first 15 miles that we rode together, he didn't pace himself very well. So we ended up at a bike shop in Springdale where they put my piece. This is a crazy story. Went to Fayetteville. Sorry, here's the quick in-between part, right? Went to Fayetteville and got the derailleur hanger that I needed. They said, we're not able to put it on for you, but you could go to Springdale right now. They'll put this on your bike. You could ride it out of the shop. And I was like, deal. So I go to Fayetteville, I buy the part, I go to Springdale, they put the part on, so now we're parked right on the Razorback Greenway in Springdale, and we hop on the bikes. We ride from Springdale up to Bentonville, and we stop for lunch. Again, I'm going to go back to this. If you have this on the square in Bentonville in a cafe, you look pretty ridiculous, okay? Like, this only works if you are dressed for the moment. Like, I had stripped off everything. We're at this restaurant, super bougie restaurant in Bentonville called The Press Room, and fortunately we ate outside on the patio, but we had to go inside to tell them that we were there so that they could let us go outside and sit on the patio. And Mark looks at me and he goes, hey, we're going to sit on the patio. And I was like, yeah, for sure. He said, I feel like I'm here in my underwear. I was like, that's because you are. Like, you literally wear more than that under your clothes, and that's what you've got on right now. Anyways, so what was I talking about? Let us run with with perseverance the race marked out for us. So all of that to say, they get my bike fixed in Springdale. We get back on the trail, and Mark, who hasn't ridden a road bike, occasionally rides a mountain bike, but hasn't ridden a road bike in like 3 years, is trucking at like 18 miles an hour. I had planned in my mind to go 12 to 15 miles an hour with this joker, and he is trucking, and I was like, Mark, I think you could be a cyclist. You've really got this down. You are really going. And so we're going and going and going and going. We get up to Bentonville, we have lunch, we get back on the bike, and the first couple of miles, we're going. And then I start realizing there's some headwind that's pushing against us, and he starts going a little bit slower. And so I slow down and I go with him, and then he starts saying like, oh man, if I turn right here, my house is right over there. Lauren could ride me back to the car. And I was like, hey man, whatever you need to do. Like I just appreciate you riding with me. And he goes, no. This is what he said. I just need to pace myself. And so for me, I mean, I've ridden a lot, for like 4,850 miles so far this year. I was ready to go, but he needed to identify that for him to get back to his car, he was going to have to ride about another 12 miles. And he said, I'm just going to keep it between 12 and 15 miles an hour. I'm not going to push harder than I need to for this moment. You have to understand the importance of pacing yourself. And pacing yourself is not just about how fast you're going, it's about how hard you're working to go that fast. And some of us, we struggle with pacing even when life is normal and easy, but you take our struggle with pacing and then you put it in the middle of a pandemic and it's like, oh my goodness, I'm so tired. I'm emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically exhausted right now. That's because you need perseverance and endurance. You need to build the kind of engine in you that says, I'm going the distance even when there's a headwind, even when the circumstances are challenging. We live in a world that pushes us to build for power and speed, but this is a time period that calls us to go the distance. There's more that I could say about that, but I think that's enough for right now. I've already preached about perspective, but perspective is so important. It says that we fix our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. It's the importance of having something in your view that's drawing you to the finish line, to the place that He has called you to. I'm sure you didn't spend as much time watching the Tour de France, and I won't talk about bikes anymore for a long time after this is a bike message, all right? I'm sure you didn't spend a lot of time watching the Tour de France, but I watched a lot of the Tour de France. And the commentators, when these guys would get to the very end of the race, they would have this extra boost of energy when they could actually see the finish line. And the guy that was commenting on it multiple days, he said, it's the magnetic draw of the finish line that's drawing him to the conclusion. And it was something about when they fix their eyes on that banner ahead, when they fix their eyes on the finish line, all of a sudden there's an extra boost of energy, there's an extra boost of stamina, there's an extra boost of strength, and they push just a little bit harder because they have their eyes fixed on something. And what Paul is telling us here is there are going to be moments when the journey is difficult. There are going to be times when the journey just draws everything out of you. There's going to be places along the journey where it feels like everything is fighting against you. Don't quit. Don't stop. Don't give up. Keep going. Don't get distracted by all of the other things that are going on around you, but fix your eyes on Jesus. When we fix our eyes on Jesus, all of a sudden the size of the pain and the distraction of the problem can fade into the distance, and with our focus on Him, we can push forward and move ahead. Fix your eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. Why would we do that? Because He is our source of salvation and strength, but there's more than that. He's also the example. He's been down this road. He has also suffered, endured, and overcome. It says, for the joy set before Him, He endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of God. So here we have this picture of us with our eyes fixed on Jesus, remembering that for Jesus, there was a moment when His eyes were fixed on the cross. And if He had just focused on the cross, He would have turned around and said, it's not worth it. I'm not going to do it. But he realized that there was something on the other side, that on the other side of the cross, there was the purpose for which he had been sent. On the other side of the cross, there was salvation for all of humankind. On the other side of the cross, there was resurrection in new life. On the other side of the cross, there was the glorification of heaven as he sat back down at the right hand of the throne of God. He had to push on through to the other side. And if there's any Doors fans in the house, here it is for you today. You're in the middle of a journey, and there's something that's in front of you, and it feels hard, and it feels difficult, and you don't feel fast enough, you don't feel strong enough, you don't feel like you can push this thing hard enough to get through to the other side. But like Jim Morrison said, you got to break on through to the other side. It said Jesus, for the joy set before him, endured the cross. What is God calling you right now to endure? Is it a pandemic? Is it COVID-19? Is it cancer? Is it a divorce? Is it a broken relationship? Is it a bankruptcy? Is it a job loss? Is it an addiction? I don't know what it is, but today I want to say, don't stop, don't quit, don't give up, do not be overcome, but fix your eyes on Jesus, who fixed his eyes not on a cross, but on the joy that was on the other side. Some of you need to hear me say today, you see something that's standing in front of you, but if you fix your eyes on Jesus, you're going to find out that the good stuff is on the other side. And he will not leave you. He will not forsake you. He will strengthen you, empower you, lead you, and guide you. He will come up to you at Slim Chickens and say, man, you look pretty beat up. It's time to lift your head. It's time to get going. It says, consider him who endured. You know what? If Jesus can endure the cross for you, you can endure this with him. If Jesus endured the cross for you, you can endure this, whatever this is, with him. He endured the cross for you. You can endure this with him. He endured the opposition from sinners. He says, consider him. Remember him. Remember. And we just held the elements, remembering that his body was broken and his blood was shed. Consider him who endured. Remember him who endured. Remember that even he promised, in this world you will have trouble. But he said, do not be discouraged. I have overcome the world. And if he has overcome the world, and our eyes are fixed on him, and his spirit is alive within us, even in the deepest, darkest, most painful and challenging moments of our lives, we can consider him who endured, and then we don't grow weary and we do not lose heart. Do this in remembrance of me, my body broken and my blood shed. In those moments where we feel like our lives are being broken and poured out, we can have confidence Jesus knows exactly how this feels. He has been through all of this and so much more. There's one more verse that stood out for me today, and it's from James. Chapter 1. Did I double skip? There we go. James chapter 1, verses 2 through 4. And this first one's crazy. I've preached this before. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kind, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance, endurance, patience, okay? Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be, let me say this again, let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. What's the other option? Immature, incomplete, and lacking. So what does that mean, Pastor Tim? It means that if Jesus, for the joy set before him, endured the cross that was before him, he endured the cross that was before him for the joy that was set on the other side. It means that for us, we have the option to choose either immature and incomplete and lacking, or mature and complete and lacking. Here's the thing. On this side, in this place, if I avoid this struggle, if I give up on this journey, if I quit right here, right now, here's what I get. Me on this side of this thing that I don't want to go through. This is Tim, immature, incomplete, and lacking. But if I'll just trust in Jesus on the other side of this thing, on the other side of the pain, on the other side of the trial, on the other side of the burden, on the other side of the sorrow, on the other side of the pandemic, on the other side of the addiction, on the other side of the divorce, on the other side of whatever the thing is that you've got to push through right now, you get the opportunity to move from immature, incomplete, and lacking to say, I'm going to fix my eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of my faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame, and he sat down at the right hand of God on the other side, because on that side I'm immature and incomplete and lacking, but Jesus does something in the middle of the challenges of life so that now I can stand here saying I am mature and complete. I am not lacking anything. The sorrow that I would have chose to avoid is the very thing that God used to make me into who he has created me and called me to be. I don't want to miss that. Which words describe you? Mature, complete, and not lacking anything? Immature, incomplete, and lacking. So hard. I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can keep going. I think I should quit. I think I should give up. I can't go anymore. I'm just going to stop. I've got a Savior who gave me his Spirit that is alive within me, that took him through the cross, to the tomb, and resurrected him. And so I don't choose immature and incomplete. I choose mature and complete, not lacking anything. That thing that I've got to go through, I would never choose it. But it's already happened. It's here and it's real. But on the other side, God's got something for me. There's strength on the other side. There's joy on the other side. There is life on the other side. You've got to break through to the other side, just like Jesus, who for the joy set before him endured the cross. What are you enduring? What do you need to overcome? Who are the people who will help you persevere? What's the profile that you need to take, the things that you need to get rid of? What's the adjustment to your pace where you've been sprinting through or powering through, and now you realize I've got to steady myself. I've got to keep things in perspective with Jesus. I've got to pace myself through this so that I can move to the other side and all that Jesus has for me. And today, as we close, the band's come to lead us in a song. And this song says, I'm going to see a victory. And for some of us, we're going to sing this, and it's going to be hard for us to sing because whatever it is that you're in right now, you don't feel like victory is at hand. You feel discouraged, and defeated, and tired, and overwhelmed. And Jesus is calling us to the other side, mature, and complete, not lacking anything, With that kind of perspective, I can even take a look at the trials of life and consider it pure joy when I face trials, sorrow, and suffering of many kinds. Why? Because God does something in the challenging, painful, and difficult moments of life that He doesn't do on the peaks and the mountaintops and the very easiest moments of life. He's with you, strengthening you, forming you, shaping you, developing you into the man, into the woman that He has called you to be on the other side. But in order to get to the other side, you've got to walk through this with Him. And if you're in a place right now in your life where you're like, man, I can sing this loud and proud and victoriously in my life today, right here, right now, sing it loud and proud as a testimony and as a praise to Him. But if you're here today and for some reason, like I feel like this message has been like Legos scattered across the floor that I'm walking on barefoot, but in the middle of all of that, if God's kind of prompted you about something, shown you something, nudged you, and said you need to listen and pay attention, like today, if you need to talk to Him, you can do that in your seat. That's fine. Altars are sanitized and ready and waiting, and it's a great place for you to encounter Him. Would you stand with me as we prepare our hearts for worship? Lord, I pray that you would take the jumbled pieces and that you would make it clear. Lord, I pray that you would speak to your people. I pray that you would accomplish your purposes. I pray today that you would lift heads, that you would strengthen hearts, and that you would help us to endure and overcome. Let's worship together.
Weapon may be formed, but it won't prosper. When the darkness falls, it won't prevail. 'Cause the God I serve knows only how to triumph. My God will never fail. No, my God will never fail. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. There's power in the mighty name of Jesus. Every war he wages, he will win. I'm not backing down from any giant. I know how this story ends. Yes, I know how this story ends. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. You take what the enemy meant for evil and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory, for the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory, I'm gonna see a victory, for the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory, I'm gonna see a victory, for the battle belongs to you, Lord. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. For the battle belongs to you, Lord.
Amen. Lord, we claim this as true today, that there is life and joy and victory on the other side. That there may be a challenge, a struggle, a setback, or even a battle that we have to endure and overcome. But today we praise you because we do not do that alone. We do that with you. We do that by your power, not in our own strength, but in yours, not with our own wisdom, but yours. You call us and enable us to overcome and to endure and to persevere. And for that, we give you praise. Lord, I pray that we wouldn't just talk about this and sing about this on this Sunday, but that we would live in this the rest of the week. And Lord, I pray that you would use us as your people for your purposes to make a difference in our homes, our places of work, our neighborhoods, and our community. Use us, we pray, in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless you. Have a wonderful week.